From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. It's Friday, February 21st, and here are today's headlines. The latest wave of federal funding cuts by the Trump administration has cut in half staff at a Vermont organization that provides legal assistance to immigrants. Jill Martin-Diaz is the executive director of the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project. They said a stop work order issued by the Department of the Interior Tuesday has forced the small nonprofit to furlough 50% of its paid staff.
Unfortunately, effective immediately, our intake for new legal cases is closed.
The Vermont Asylum Assistance Project represents unaccompanied minors in removal proceedings, helps Afghan refugees maintain their legal status, and provides assistance to immigrants seeking asylum in the United States. Diaz-Martin said they expect to lose the remainder of their federal funding sources in the coming months. A new initiative at the UVM Medical Center aims to help people of color adjust to work and life in Vermont. The program is a partnership between the hospital and Vermont Professionals of Color Network, and it will soon be available at no cost to residents of color. Initially, it will be offered in several residency programs, including emergency medicine, pediatrics, and psychology. The program pairs new hires from out of state with peers who have lived in Vermont for a longer period of time. Courtney Fleischer is UVM Medical Center's lead inpatient pediatric psychologist.
Residency is a very challenging time, very time and labor intensive, very emotionally draining. And so being able to provide that resource to help our residents of color feel more settled and included in the community.
Fleischer says that in the coming year, UVMMC hopes to expand the initiative to all 17 residency programs. New York State's prison system has shut down visitations until further notice. The halt in visitations comes on the fourth day of unrest at correctional facilities statewide. Staff have been holding unsanctioned strike actions, and some corrections officers have walked off the job. On Wednesday afternoon, New York Governor Kathy Hochul deployed the National Guard to supplement current correctional staff and distribute meals to incarcerated people. And members of Vermont's cannabis industry told lawmakers this week that many small growers could be forced out of business unless the state controls an oversupply of product. They encouraged lawmakers to amend the current law to allow growers to sell their products directly to consumers while limiting the number of retail stores in the community. Tito Byrne runs a shop in Burlington, and he said there's too much retail density in places like the Queen City because currently towns need to vote to allow sales. That's a process known as opt-in. Byrne thinks retail sales should instead be allowed by default unless a town votes to opt out.
I'm sure that some Burlington dispensaries would love to open to be the first place in Williston or South Burlington or Charlotte or Shelburne, all these places that no doubt many of them would have not opted out if it was switched the other way.
The House Government Operations Committee will consider the proposals. Coming up, a young woman who feared the police when she was growing up in Iraq now works in law enforcement in Vermont. That's after this.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency, where support comes from VITA, supporting business growth and innovation in the Green Mountain State. From agriculture to manufacturing, energy to food production, find solutions that turn your business dreams into reality. Visit VEDA.org and see how VITA can help make it happen.
As a young girl growing up in Iraq, Saja Al-Maghali did not feel comfortable approaching police. Now she's an officer herself. At age 16, Al-Maghali arrived in Burlington as a refugee from Iraq by way of Turkey. She taught herself and her siblings English and came to establish a life in Vermont before eventually pursuing a career in law enforcement. And just a few months ago, Al-Maghali became the district liaison officer for Winooski schools. Winooski School District is one of Vermont's most diverse. Over half of students identify as a person of color. Part of what drew Al-Maghali to her new role was the opportunity to help that student body feel more comfortable around law enforcement, in contrast to her own experience growing up. On a recent Monday morning, Vermont Public's Jen Jarecki popped by Winooski's JFK Elementary School to meet Al-Maghali. Shortly into their conversation, Jen asked if she felt welcomed when she and her family first got to Vermont.
Definitely until this day. That's why I do so much now, because I feel like I have to pay back the community that welcomed my family. We came with nothing, and I mean nothing, not even a jacket on. And we settled. We had a home for us. It was beautiful, like 3-bedroom, bathroom, like all for you. The kitchen was filled with stuff. They assigned you a caseworker, and the one we had was so amazing. Like, I'm so grateful for that opportunity, for that person, for Vermont Refugee Resettlement Program, because it's hard to move from one place to another, but also adding all that you have to now worry about your food and your place and all of that would have just made it harder for us.
Can you talk about your relationship to law enforcement growing up?
I grew up in Baghdad, Iraq, and I'm like any other Iraqi. We don't have an amazing relationship with law enforcement or authority in general because it's a corrupt system. Authority is for people who can afford it. I can speak about my whole family, never had a good interaction. We're 7 girls and 2 boys, and my mom. So it's like a house full of girls. The head of household usually is the man, and when Dad passed away, my mom really couldn't voice or say anything or do anything. Every time she goes to authority, they would never speak to her. They would never look at her.
What were your interactions with law enforcement like in America before joining the Burlington Police Department?
We have a school resource officer when I was in high school. I would ask them something. My siblings would look at me like I'm in trouble. Why are you talking to them? Like, what's wrong? Are you in trouble? Do you need help? Like, that's their reaction. I've had an amazing interactions with police officers. In high school, I did the Junior Milers program, and it's a running club. And then we meet at the Burlington Police Department. It's like the community area, and you get to like go in, and sometimes you see like uniform officers going in and out. Sometimes you run with them. And I always thought they were so cool. Throughout all my high school, I continued, and that made the connection with law enforcement stronger and stronger and stronger. And then by the time I graduated, it was 2020, and I don't really need to tell you what happened that year. Everybody knows, and that made me look more deep into like what's law enforcement, and this is why this is happening here when I'm not seeing that side of law enforcement. All I'm seeing is just amazing people that I work with.
How do you try to approach your job in a more inclusive way while still providing space to acknowledge that many people have faced discrimination and may not want to have further interactions with the police in whatever form that takes?
When I wanted to become a police officer, I wanted people to understand that someone like me, who's a person of color, who's a female, who's a refugee, who's also Muslim, like, I have my own understanding of what racism is. I know how it to be you. I've been in your shoes. There's always someone that's going to say something about you, your appearance, the way you look, and to take that and understand that and also provide that safe space for them. There is bad law enforcement, and I agree with you, but there's also good ones. And I really focus on new Americans because I know how it feels to not be able to trust or talk to a police officer.
How does that approach play out in your day-to-day?
I come in with the uniform as much as I can, so I want them to get used to me. I tell them what I do in school. I tell them what I do outside school. I tell them how can I be a resource for you, because I work for you, and I need you to understand I am a resource for you. You don't have to be in trouble to talk to me. Fridays, I spend my last block in art class, favorite class, and I just do art with the kids. And I go on field trips with them if they, have field trips. So I do a lot of things like that just so they know that I'm just a normal person like them, just wears a uniform, nothing else.
So what is your normal, if there is a normal day-to-day for you? What are the ins and outs of your role?
I try to get here before or around the time that everybody gets off the bus. I welcome them in. Most kids that see me will ask for stickers. I hand stickers out. My mom works in the kitchen here, so I go hang out with her sometimes. I say hi. And then lunchtime, my favorite time of the day, I get all the hugs. Can you come sit with me? Can you come sit with me? And I wish I could sit with every kid, but there's just one of me. I probably have like a meeting or two after, and then that's it, the end of the school day. I'm just so grateful for this opportunity for the community, for Winooski, for really Vermont.
That was Winooski District Liaison Officer Saja Almagali speaking with host Jen Jarecki. Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. We had additional reporting from Peter Hirschfeld, Nathaniel Wilson, Mary Engish and Bob Kinzel. Our executive producer is Kevin Trevelyan, and our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. I'm off next week, but The Frequency will still be coming your way, and I'll talk to you again soon.